Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. And today, as you can probably tell from my shirt, I'm doing a review of Abigail. Can't really see it that well with this framing, but yeah, there she is. So I went into this movie having fairly low expectations, but I actually ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I know some people that I've talked to about it have felt a bit mediocre on it. And yes, is this film like a cinematic masterpiece? No. But compared to what we have gotten so far this year, between the Blumhouse schlock and the two back-to-back nun movies with an oddly similar plot, after having endured all of that, Abigail was honestly a breath of fresh air. It is a film that just wants you to sit back and have a good time. Yes, there are a few bumpy narrative moments, but I'll get into that. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with the characters. This is written and directed by the Radio Silence guys, who of course did Ready or Not and helmed the latest two Scream projects. As far as their work goes, I really love Ready or Not. I think that film is fantastic. And I will say, I was also a fan of Scream 5. I was really hesitant about the studios wanting to reboot the Scream franchise, especially after the passing of Wes Craven, but I actually really enjoyed what they did with Scream 5. I thought it was very respectful to Craven's legacy overall. Now, Scream 6, on the other hand, Scream 6 was not my favorite. I know it has its fans out there. It very much felt like a slasher film that was too afraid to actually kill any of the characters because it wanted to, I guess, put them in the next sequel. I don't know. As far as the Scream films go, Scream 6 to me feels like the least fitting of the whole franchise. I know there was like some things going on behind the scenes between the guys at Radio Silence and the studios, and there's been a lot of drama behind the scenes since then with the Scream franchise. I know Matt and Tyler, who are the two primary writer-directors for Radio Silence, they have since left the Scream franchise, so it wouldn't be surprising to me to learn that there was like some studio meddling going on with Scream 6. So watching Abigail, I was really happy to see that they were going back to their original roots of Ready or Not. It's very much in that same tone. I would even go as far to say that it's in the same universe as that film. They might have confirmed that, I don't know.
Is a portrait in the background of one of the scenes of Henry Czerny's.
I mean, it would be a grandfather, a great grandfather.
There is a little bit of a Ready or Not, a tied universe to Ready or Not.
It has a very similar formula, a very similar structure, obviously a very similar setting to Ready or Not, and the fact that you have a group of characters that are just stuck inside one location and are essentially playing this game of cat and mouse. If you liked Ready or Not, if you liked the vibes of that film, if you liked the universe that was set in, then you'll probably like Abigail. I would not say that Abigail is better than Ready or Not. I think Ready or Not is still the superior film of the two. But like I said, this film has a fun cast, has a great location. I loved the house setting. Again, very similar to Ready or Not, where it's just this very old vintage setting and there's all of these like weird antiques. So it's a fun location to be in, and again, the cast is amazing. I really loved seeing Dan Stevens pop up again. The only thing that I know him from is Downton Abbey. So it was fun to see him taking on this new type of role and essentially just playing this really like asshole, power-hungry guy. You also have Catherine Newton in this film. I just love her. I loved her in Lisa Frankenstein. I've loved her since Paranormal Activity 4. You have the late Angus Cloud in here as well, who is also very funny. And of course, the great Juan Carlo Esposito. Us Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul fans, we stan. I also thought the young girl that played Abigail, I have to look up her name, Alicia Weir, I think is how you say her name. I thought she did a great job as Abigail and playing an 800-year-old vampire that is in the body of a 14-year-old girl. I also really loved Kevin Duran. He plays kind of the goof throughout the film, but me and my friend that I saw the film with, we were laughing at the fact that he just looks like a really muscular, beefed up Elon Musk. So this is a fun cast to hang out with, and it is one of those movies that does let you hang out with the characters for a bit before all the craziness starts happening, and I love that. I love these kind of movies. I'm just a fan of like heist movies in general, which this definitely has elements of. If anything, my only criticism is that maybe some of the characters could have been a little bit more fleshed out. Like Catherine Newton's character, for example, we don't really learn that much about her other than the fact that she's just kind of like hot hacker girl. And to be fair, right, these are supposed to be career criminals, so they're not supposed to be letting out too much information about themselves. But I feel like through actions and behaviors, you can learn a lot about a character, and we definitely get that with some of the team. And for other members of the team, it just kind of feels like they're there for some of it. They're not really given as much to do as some of the other characters. And then just speaking about like character development and the story, I feel like the biggest reason why Abigail is not on the same level as Ready or Not is because I feel like Abigail is kind of lacking in like its themes and its thematic through line. Like Ready or Not obviously had a lot of themes around family and the whole idea of the traditional marriage, family traditions, as well as family curses that get passed on from one generation to the next, whether that curse is real or just imaginary. And those are very strong themes that Ready or Not definitely grabbed onto, and it definitely helped ground the narrative. And it was like taking these themes and then just pushing them to the most extreme level that you could think of. And that's what made the film so much fun to watch. Whereas I feel like with Abigail, like they try to throw in this kind of theme around family and parents and children, but it's not like a through line throughout the whole film. You have this thing with the main protagonist, Joey, and you find out that she's a mom and she is in this business because she's trying to get enough resources for her son. And then there's a whole thing with like Abigail and her father, and they have a strained relationship. But again, it's not like these are main ideas throughout the film. They kind of just come in here and there when it's most convenient for the narrative, and most of it is said through exposition dialogue. So that's my biggest problem as far as the story goes. I just didn't feel like the theme was as strong in Abigail as what you see in Ready or Not. And I feel like with Ready or Not, like when you think of the ending of that film, Ready or Not's ending is really what kind of makes the whole film. And again, it works so well because of all of these thematic elements that they've been setting up throughout the rest of the movie. And it just feels like such a great like exclamation point to the end of the movie. It's just a nice button at the end that very much sums up in a very cheeky and a very funny way what this whole film was about. And I didn't get that with Abigail. Like they do try to do a similar thing where they try to have this twist at the end, but it just comes off kind of flat. I will talk about the ending near the end of my review, but for right now, I'll just say like the ending to Abigail didn't pack the same punch as the ending to Ready or Not. Even though it felt like that's what they were trying to go for, it felt like they wanted to have another one of those moments. And since we're on the topic of Ready or Not, there are definitely a few callbacks to that film. I feel like with Abigail, Radio Silence is really establishing their directing style. Like there are certain things, again, I don't want to spoil it, but there are certain things within Abigail that you also see happen in Ready or Not. And on the one hand, it definitely feels like the filmmakers are like putting their stamp. Like it feels like they're definitely trying to establish the certain trademarks of their films so that when you go see a movie and you see these certain elements, you are going to know immediately that it is a Radio Silence production. So that was fun. It was fun to see the callbacks. It did feel like they were kind of relying on what they did with Ready or Not, maybe a little bit too much in Abigail. When this certain thing happens in Ready or Not, again, it's in that kind of like last few minutes, that kind of like exclamation point at the end that I was just talking about. Whereas here they try to do it like multiple times throughout the third act. I know that it's not fun or funny to watch. I guess I would have liked it if they had maybe push themselves a little bit more. There are certain parts of this film, especially as we get into the end of the second act and the third act, that do start to feel a bit repetitive. And again, I would have liked it if they had maybe been a bit more creative in how they went about the characters trying to figure out how to stop Abigail. When they first realize what's going on and they're trying to like figure out like, okay, what are all the tropes that we know about vampires that we can try to use against this girl? It's very funny. It starts off very funny. And yes, they do the kind of typical stuff that we see where it's like, okay, stake through the heart or garlic, but then they don't go that much farther with it. They just kind of stick to like the wooden stakes that they make and run after her. So we have these kind of like repetitive scenes where It's like you have the group of characters that they decide to split up in the house to try to find Abigail, and then they find her, and then, you know, she beats the shit out of them. It's hilarious. And then she's about to kill one of them, and then right at the last second, someone figures out some way to stop her before she can actually bite anyone. Or if she does bite them, it doesn't kill them right away. And so we just got like a few scenes of that kind of back to back. I really wanted this film to go a little bit more like, I don't know, I guess something like From Dusk Till Dawn. In the sense of, you have a very similar storyline where you have a group of very different characters that are stuck in one location and they have to figure out how to fight this supernatural evil that none of them thought was real at the beginning of the film. What I think is so fun about From Dusk Till Dawn is the creative ways that they come up with to kill the vampires. That again are just so campy and so over the top, right? The whole thing of like using the guns to make a cross, like it's great. I love that film so much. And yes, it is different because obviously in that film they are fighting off multiple vampires rather than just one. I do think, this might be a slight spoiler, I do think there was opportunity here for them to introduce more vampires. As Abigail is biting off certain characters, I felt like there could have been an opportunity for them to turn into vampires themselves and create more threats for the characters to deal with, up the stakes a little bit more. They do play with that a little bit, but not enough where it's really like upping the danger factor for the protagonists. And again, I'm not saying that the film really needed to do that. My biggest thing is I just wish they had been a little bit more creative in how they were going about their vampire hunting. Hey everyone, Editing Cat here, jumping in real quick. So while I was editing this video, I was starting to think about how this film would play if we went into it not knowing that Abigail was a vampire. Obviously, all of the marketing material for this film is letting you know that this is a vampire story, but I'm curious as to how it would have played out had we not known that going in. Because I would say the first act of the movie, the first 30 minutes, you're just kind of getting to know the characters and hanging out with them. Nothing really horrific starts happening, nothing with the vampires starts happening. And it might have been a fun twist had they not let us know ahead of time that this was a vampire story. Again, very similar to something like From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know, let me know your thoughts about that in the comments. Because I would say by like the hour and 30 mark, I was starting to feel the film drag a little bit. And yeah, for me personally, like I feel like Abigail has a bit of the third act fizzle going on, where they kind of project what the ending is going to be. You can kind of see it written on the wall. And so you're kind of just like waiting for them to get to that conclusion so you can see what's going to happen after it, if anything happens after it. So yes, the slight weak third act and then the overall themes of the film, I think, are the weakest parts of Abigail. All that being said, I still had a lot of fun with this movie. I mean, I went in with pretty low expectations because the trailers for this thing just did nothing for me. But it's definitely the most enjoyable film that I've watched so far this year as far as like the horror genre goes. And I would also say like this is a rated R movie, mostly for the language. But if you're someone that is the parent of like older children or older teens and you don't mind them watching movies with coarse language in it, I mean, they drop the F-bomb throughout the whole thing, that's really it. If you're okay with that, then I actually feel like this is a really good movie that you could like take your family to and watch. Because yes, while it is violent and gory, it's so over the top and it's so goofy that there's nothing in here that's like really scary. It really is a movie that just wants you to have a good time. And I'm really intrigued to see what Universal is going to continue doing with these like monster movies that they're creating. I am so happy that they ditched that dark universe plan that they had. And so I really like these reimagined stories. I know that the intention behind Abigail was to be a retelling of Dracula's daughter. And I think it's a really fun way to both pay homage to these original monster movies while also trying something completely new. So those are my overall thoughts on Abigail. Let me know in the comments what you think. And I do want to shift gears and talk about the ending now. So I am going to be getting into spoilers. So if you have not seen the film and you don't want to get spoiled, here is your warning. Click off now. Come back when you've seen the film and let me know what you think of the ending. So I'm specifically talking about the part where Dracula comes in, Abigail's father comes in. My question is, you know, they gave Dracula such this like grand entrance when he was coming in, like this big buildup. And while it was happening, I was like, oh, they're gonna do like a really great cameo. And then they revealed Dracula and I was like, Am I supposed to know who that actor is? And he might be someone that is just like within the radio silence realm. He might be one of their go-to actors. I don't remember if he was in Ready or not. If he is, if that's what this is, like he's just like a radio silence guy, then please let me know. Like again, it felt like they were building up to a big cameo. Like I was expecting someone like Nicolas Cage to just like pop up. I know he did Dracula in that Renfield movie, but it seemed like it would be appropriate for him to show up here as well. Or if they were gonna like pull an actor from like, I don't know, one of the Twilight films or True Blood, because they name dropped those properties. And that would have been kind of funny since this is a film that's spoofing the vampire lore. But yeah, Dracula like just shows up and then he acts like kind of weird. And then Abigail has a whole thing of like, oh, daddy, you're never there for me. You never love me. And then he gets really angry, but then he's not. And then they like kind of magically like reconnect and are like father and daughter again. And then he starts acting weird towards Joey. And I was just like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be getting from this scene. As I mentioned earlier in the review, it felt like one of those moments where, similar to Ready or Not, they're trying to put like a pin on what they wanted the theme of this movie to be. It just felt like so awkward. And again, it was so like fast how he went from like angry and being an absentee father to suddenly him and Abigail like making up. And again, I think like a really good character actor like a Nicolas Cage could have probably pulled that off. Whereas I felt like the guy that they had playing Dracula like just felt awkward. I don't think that was the fault of the actor. I think that was just kind of like a directing thing. Felt like it wanted to be funnier than what it really was. So those are my thoughts on Abigail. Again, I think it's probably one of the better films that we've gotten within the horror genre so far this year. And I am very excited that we are now out of this like first quarter, January through April. I mean, honestly, for me, I feel like January through April is always kind of bland. I mean, personally, I think these are just like bland months in general. My favorite time of year is the summer through the winter holidays. And I feel like that's when the best movies come out as well. And there's a lot of things to be excited for. Just off the top of my head, I'm really looking forward to In a Violent Nature. Longlegs looks really creepy and weird. And then of course we have like the bigger releases like Alien Romulus. I'm so curious what Fede Alvarez is going to do with that franchise. And of course the return of my beloved Ty West with Maxine. I am so excited for that. Even the new Strangers movies, like the trailer for the first one looks kind of goofy and it does look like just a complete like rehash of the original 2008 film, even though it's supposed to be a prequel. But I'm honestly curious what they're doing with this whole thing of like breaking it up into chapters. I'm very much looking forward to what we have coming up this summertime season. In the meantime though, let me know your thoughts on Abigail. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know in the comments down below and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.